I'm Frank Macioce, and I'm here with Police Chief Andrew Bartolotti. Now, we're here in what we hope is the final days of COVID. We're wearing masks, but we are 6 feet apart. So, Chief, what do you say we disrobe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so setting the example. So, I'm delighted, really, to be able to take this opportunity to introduce the chief to the people of Summit. He's not brand new to the job, but he's pretty new to the job as chief, though not new to the department. So, Chief, how long has it been since you became chief?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I know we tried to connect early on.
We did.
When I first kind of took over, but we had a lot going on during the summer. And then prior to that, with the pandemic going on, I've been with the Summit Police Department now for 22 years actually. Came in early 2000 and have served in quite a number of different roles within the department. And I know we're going to talk a lot about that, and I'm excited to talk about that. But my time here, my time in law enforcement dates back prior to actually coming to Summit. I actually started my law enforcement career in 1996 with a town in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and then ultimately came up here about 22 years ago.
Okay. And when did you become chief?
Became chief officially on June 1st of last year, 2020. That was the official swearing-in date. Prior to that, I took over in an acting capacity just around mid-March, just around the time the pandemic hit, when Chief Robert Weck at the time had gotten the virus and had gone out on medical leave. Because of the succession planning that he had in place, a transition was very easy to move into that acting role and assume that role from about mid-March all the way up until the appointment June 1st.
Okay. So let's go back historically.
Sure.
I'd like the folks to learn a little bit about you as a person. What first got you involved and interested in police work? Your dad was a policeman, wasn't he?
He was. My father was a New York City police officer, got hired in 1969, worked all the way through until his retirement. Moved around New York City quite a bit. I don't really recall him being a police officer. He retired when I was a young age. But I had known it all through my life that he was, and that kind of inspired me a little bit. But I think really what kind of drove me towards a career in service, if you will, is my grandfathers. Both my grandfathers were World War II veterans. My one grandfather actually was shot in the head during the war, so that always, and I'm getting chills even talking about it, because that story always resonated with me, that just a few centimeters one way or the other, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And his outlook on that experience in his life stayed with me and my brothers and sisters and my cousins, I think, to this day, in the sense that despite what he had gone through both in the war, and obviously we've heard stories about World War II, I'll never know exactly what that felt like, but just hearing him tell stories of good things that happened, never talked really about the war itself, but just knowing that he was in that traumatic incident and what that took him through, and the fallout from that, not knowing at the time what PTSD was and having to deal with him on his own, he devoted his life to always helping others. And that was kind of his motto was, we may not be able to help everybody, but we definitely shouldn't hurt anybody. So he carried that through, and he instilled that, I believe, in a young age in me and my brothers, my sisters, and my cousins, and even my parents. And he was kind of like the rock of the family. So if I had to trace it back.
This is your father's father?
This is my mother's father.
My
mother's father. My father's father was a Marine in World War II. He lived up until he was about 85 years old. Very quiet man, but also had witnessed a lot from what I understood in the war. He was a quiet man, but a family man. So he instilled in us a lot of the family values that I still hold today and bring down for my children. And I think that's kind of where it all started from, if I have to really look back. A lot of times it's easy to say, oh, well, my father was a police officer, so that's where it all came from. And my godfather, my uncles were police officers, and that's where it came from. But I didn't grow up in that police culture of everybody that my parents were friends with were police officers. I didn't really know about my father's background until probably later in my elementary school years and into middle school years. But I always knew kind of where my grandparents came from, where my grandfathers came from.
And so where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York until I was the age of 17. The summer before my senior year in high school, my family relocated out to Monmouth County, New Jersey, where I've been ever since.
Okay.
And my last year in high school, I commuted back and forth to Brooklyn just to finish out my last year. So we've been out in New Jersey since 1993, or 1992, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when did your police training begin? I know training is a huge part of
Sure.
being a policeman.
I would say I'd have to take that back a little bit and expand on that and say that my training in public service started in 1994. We moved out to New Jersey in 1992. In 1994, I felt the need to get involved in some type of public service, emergency type service, and I joined a local volunteer company in my hometown. Been with them, stayed with them for about 18 years, rising up to the rank of captain in that organization. And I think that's what opened some of the doors for me in my police career. I met some great people in that organization that were police officers that kind of guided me on how things were done in New Jersey, because my only knowledge was how things were done in New York City from talking to my father and my uncles. So I was fortunate enough to land a position with the Manasquan Police Department in 1996. Entering the academy in Monmouth County at that time. And then that really was the birth of my career in law enforcement.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the training. As I said, I think that the training is huge for policemen,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, I mean, the initial training is similar to military style boot camp, if you will. It's at the time that I went through, it's 20 weeks. I believe now it's up to about 22 weeks of training. Monmouth County Police Academy was a non-residential academy, so kind of like going to college every day. You show up early in the morning, you go through your training, whether it's physical training or classroom training, practical training, and then head home in the evening and come home and do a lot of studying before the next morning. Some other academies in the state of New Jersey are residential, where you reside there the entire time from start to finish, obviously coming home on some breaks. And that's really what it is, and it's called, the actual title for that training is called the Basic Course for Police Officers, and it's just that, it's just a basic course. It's imperative that once an officer graduates from that training, that their continuing education does not stop. And you have, at the time that I got hired, it was a 25-year outlook for a career before retirement eligibility was upon you. Today, officers coming out of the academy are at a 30-year outlook on their career. So you can imagine, if you will, that if you just stuck with just the basic training that you have learned, in my case 22 years ago, it would not serve me well, and it would not serve the public that I'm entrusted to serve. It wouldn't serve them well. So continuing education is extremely important in this profession.
So can you give me some examples of what types of
Sure.
education that you've had along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with my formal education. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in public administration and sciences from Fairleigh Dickinson University. Completing that master's while I was employed here in Summit in 2011, I felt the need to take it to the next level, take my career and my education to the next level. And I feel that field of choice, public administration, helped me certainly get to where I am today in my career. And I think it also helps us from a management aspect and what we're trying to accomplish in the police department, just having that background. Because of those experiences and my desire to continue, and I was a much better adult learner than I was as a fresh 18-year-old at a high school, and a new move into New Jersey, so I was kind of a little all over the place. But when the time came that I could excel a little bit more and take advantage of more training opportunities, I put my name in for everything that was available to me. In some cases, I didn't get the training that I was looking for, but in other cases, I was very fortunate. And a couple of those examples were, I was invited to participate in the New Jersey State Chiefs course for Command and Leadership. The Command and Leadership Academy it's a 16-week program that really dives into command level responsibilities and what we're entrusted for the public, but also mainly for what we're entrusted in training and developing those below us. It's no surprise that if you have a well-trained and well-educated organization, and in our case a police organization, that the level of service that's going to come out of that towards the public is going to be stellar, and that's what we strive for here. So I was very fortunate for that training. After that, I had an opportunity to go overseas as one of 10 representatives from the state of New Jersey to train in Scotland with the police in Scotland. That was an experience that I hold cherished to me, because it let me know that we kind of look at ourselves in a bubble, so to speak. You know, what are we dealing with in terms of policing in Summit? You take that a little bit bigger to the Union County, to the state, to the nation, and then when you go overseas and you see how things are done in another country, and you realize things are kind of the same everywhere. You know, and the takeaway for me was that it's not a grass is always greener type of mentality, but it hits home that how you serve the public, no matter where you are, no matter what type of department, type of community, or type of country you are, the outcome is going to be a lot better than just going out there and policing. And I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit or I assume we are, on what policing in Summit looks like. So I'll save it for that. But you know, going from there, the next big opportunity that I had was to be one of 5 selected from New Jersey to attend the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. That experience happened in 2017 for me. It's an experience that to this day I have many contacts that I made from that course. There were 264 candidates, I believe.
Now, is this the same training the FBI guys get?
It's similar in nature. So the National Academy is for law enforcement professionals that are not affiliated necessarily with the FBI. But you do have some federal agents in there. So FBI, similar to New Jersey Police, we have our basic training course. FBI has their basic training course. This is an advanced level above that. So this is only opportunity for about 5 representatives from New Jersey per year that go down there, and takes in students from all over the world. We had 264 students in the class representing, I think it was over 13 different countries, and how we could discuss how policing was in all those different communities.
Now, so you've had really a huge amount of training, and a sort of diverse kind of training. Is this typical for the guys you have on the force? I shouldn't say guys, men and women. So
for the uniformed personnel, we obviously, with our different rank structure, we have different levels of training as you go higher. So the training that I just discussed wouldn't necessarily be there for uniformed personnel in today's time in their current roles, but certainly would be there. And something that I'm instituting is career tracks and training tracks, so that if somebody wants to aspire to go to that training, such as the FBI, we put them on the right track today to get there. But our officers go through mandated training every year that they're required. And just to rattle off a few is they do annual domestic violence training, de-escalation training, racial diversity training, implicit bias training, use of force training, vehicle operations, first aid, medical. Everything that we do every day requires us to continuously train year to year.
So what do you look for when you're looking for a new recruit?
In a phrase, are you a good person?
Okay.
That's for this community, that is the utmost quality we look for in a person, and then we start from there. So if you are a good person, we encourage people to apply here, because you are going to find an excellent career, an excellent community, and an excellent home and family here in Summit. Where we go from there is, and where we're tracking is, we want to be able to build a police force that represents the community and the constant changes within this community, so that we are one with the community and the community is one with us, and they see that both in the way we interact with them and the way that we're hiring. So we're looking for more women in our organization, we're looking for more diversity within our organization, and then we're looking to take all of that and bring it together with the community so that we are one.
Okay. I will say that the Summit Police are a pleasure to deal with.
Thank you.
I mean, they just it's a terrific force, and you know, when I see them, I say hi, they say hi, and they're great. So, what do you like especially about being a policeman, and in particular being police chief in Summit?
Being a police officer, as cliche as it might sound, I have a desire to help people. I really do. And like I said, that comes back from just what I witnessed growing up from my parents and my grandparents. Throughout my career, I was very fortunate to have a lot of different assignments. And for the sake of time, I won't go through every one of those assignments, but every one of those assignments taught me something different about why I love this job. And I'll use one example as a detective real quick is, I felt as a new detective, my job was to solve every crime that came across my desk, and the reality is that that did not happen. And I've had to make the phone calls to victims and say, I'm sorry, we just couldn't find out who burglarized your house or stole your whatever it may be. And I look back on that still to this day, and I use it as a training tool for our new detectives going in to say, the pressure that I had on myself to solve every crime was not the right mindset. It was to make sure that I took care of the people that were calling us. And when I had to make that phone call to say, I'm sorry, I was shocked by the response that I got, which was thank you. And I didn't understand that at first. And then I've come to learn that because we connected with that person, because we made an effort to understand that their incident, however minor or major it was, had an impact on them that we may or may not emotionally feel. But we have to put ourselves in that position to say, you know what, we're going to invest the time here because it's important, it's the right thing to do. And policing in Summit is not like it is on TV. And that's what we really instill in our officers.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that people fully understand that the great satisfaction of the job is helping people.
It is.
It's the same, I think, for firemen, other
Sure.
city officials. I know it's true for council members. The first
Yep.
time I ever heard John Bramnick, our assemblyman, say it, it sounded corny, but it's true,
It's true.
and I know that that's what I got out of
Yeah.
it when I was involved. Do you have a philosophy, an underlying philosophy about how to run a police department? Tell me if that's a silly question.
No, it's not a silly question, and I just hope I'm not repeating myself in the sense that it's really just about, so in this community, in Summit, and you know, Frank, from serving on council and living here as long as you have, this is community like no other.
Yep.
And just to sidestep a little bit, I had an opportunity back in 2002 to go to what was going to be my dream job at the Port Authority Police Department. And at that time, only being here just over a year, I actually turned it down because I realized within a quick year of service in Summit that this is where I needed to be. And I'm grateful to this day that I never took that job because this community, thank you. This community has done wonders, not just for my career, but for my family life, just for a sense of purpose, for a sense of gratitude. When I said before that policing in Summit is not like the movies, it's not like TV, and we often tell our new hires and applicants, if you're looking for the Hollywood style career, you've come to the wrong place. But if you're looking for a place that you're going to know everybody's name and everybody's going to know your name and a sense of family and community, you're in the right place. So the philosophy that I have for the department is, and I'll piggyback off kind of community policing, is one that I look back over the three previous chiefs that I was served under, Chief Sneller, Chief Lucid, and Chief Weck. And they put down the foundation that I believe that I am able now to build even higher on, and that is to instill in our officers that community policing is not just a phrase, it's not just a term, it's not something that we're going to put on our organizational chart to say we have, but it is an overall philosophy on how every man and woman in this organization is to conduct themselves in the public, and for the public to understand that although we are police officers, we're really and truly public servants. We're here for you for whatever the needs may be.
And is that the essence of
That is
community
the essence
policing?
of it. Yes, it is.
Okay. So what recent challenges have you had to encounter?
So
as
we've
chief?
had a lot of challenges. As I mentioned, I took over in an acting capacity just when the health pandemic hit,
Yeah.
and you know, that was an extremely difficult challenge for our organization. Policing is predominantly aware of the challenges that are upon them and they face, and that's kind of how we strategic plan. We plan for the worst, we hope for the best is kind of the motto, so to speak. When the health pandemic hit, we didn't know where to go. We didn't know where to start. But because of some of the policies that we have in place and the practices we have in place and the personnel that we have in key positions, we were able to adjust and adapt rather quickly. And all through the pandemic, you know, knock on wood, we hadn't had one officer infected with the virus since that time.
Really?
Other than Chief Weck, which was really before kind of the virus was known. But once it was become known, the procedures and safeguards we put in place kept our officers safe with the primary mission of we needed to be here for everybody else in the community. So I'm very thankful to all the officers within the department that sacrificed through that time to make that happen because there was a lot. And as you know, as the summer went on, we had challenges with social justice throughout the country and the challenges that faced and brought. And our philosophy there was no different. We're here to serve the community. So when the community wanted to come out and have their voices heard, we were right there with them, and we are always there with them. We are there for their safety, we are there for everyone's safety, and we're there to show them that we are in partnership with you in those types of causes. So, when I set out, I had an idea of what I wanted my first year to look like as chief. And really what that was going to look like was just to take a step back and do an assessment of the department, to see where we were, where we are presently, and where we're going to go in the future, and then put the foundation and the steps in place to get to those goals. Right from the get-go, the pandemic kind of took that plan and put it aside, threw the shredder in the garbage pail. But now I think we're in a place that we could pick that back up again. So 2021 for me, and coming out of my office for my command staff, has been about looking at the metrics of where we are. Let's look at our statistical aspects of what our calls will look like, what our service incidents will look like, and let's lay down the roadmap of where we want to be 12 months from now, 36 months from now, and start down that track. And it's really going well. We're off to a great start with that. Hopefully, things can stay in a calm right now so that we can focus on that, because I think at the end of this, what we're going to see coming out of this police department is a more professional police department, in the sense that we will have the foundations of our policies and procedures in place that are in line with best practices. We've taken on the commitment to pursue agency accreditation, and we're on track to see that happen this year, which is going to be great for the city as well.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you what changes you've made, but it sounds as if it's in the planning stage because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
and
We've made a few organizational changes right from the get-go. I could talk about one of the changes we made was on our support services side so the department has two divisions. It's an operations side and a support services side. On the support services side, we're expanding upon our community policing unit, which was just a unit. We've transitioned that into a community services bureau, because when we look at what our jobs are in Summit, we're about community service. It's more than just the things that we have done from a community policing standpoint, but it's more of a services. And we're working with mayor and council right now on different services for different groups within the organization. Because of the pandemic, we saw the need for social services and being an ally in advocating for that. So we're transforming our community policing image to more of a community services type organization on that front.
Okay. Well, we only have a few minutes left, but I'd like to leave it open-ended and ask you, what would you like the people of Summit to know about you, about the police force, about policing in Summit? Anything else you want to talk about?
That's a great question. I'd like to end with just saying that we are here for you, and that is the message that we want out there. Your police department understands, especially over the last 12 months, what this country has gone through, what we've all gone through, what the children have gone through with schools and everything else. And we just want everybody to know that we are human too, and we get it. And we're here in partnership with the community for whatever the community needs. And our motto of protecting and serving will always be at the forefront of making sure that this community is safe. But in doing that, we also want to be partners with the community, so they understand that we are here for them.
Okay. Well, Chief, thank you very much for participating in this interview, for giving the people of Summit an opportunity to get to know a little bit about you and about your thinking about policing, and in particular policing in Summit. So it's been interesting and informative, and I hope people tune in. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity,
Okay.
Frank.